He is Marshall head coach Charles Huff. I am John Brice of FootballScoop.com, and this is the Our Coaching Network podcast. Coach, middle of the season, rare bye week for you as you prepare for a vastly improved Monroe squad. Thanks so much for taking some time out and joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm glad it worked out. Obviously, you guys bring a lot of vital information and insight to this game of college football, especially from the coaching network. So happy to be a part, happy to help out.
Yeah, it's awesome. This podcast has quickly become one of the favorite things that I get to do, and I tell people all the time I'm a football nerd, and you've been kind enough to let me learn by you and feel some of those football nerd cravings. Let's just dive right into this season, though. Huge win for you guys last week against Georgia State, and why I think it was so significant is because you had endured some heartbreak the week before, and your team really bounced back in a strong way. And then you had to bounce back within this game to close it out. What do you learn about your team with both its response leading into that game and the way it responded to close out Georgia State?
Yeah, I think obviously every season has its ebbs and flows, and you really don't know, who and what your team is until you go through extreme highs and extreme lows. Martin Luther King said it best. The character of a man is not determined in times of comfort and and happiness. It's always the adversity that hits, how you respond when you get knocked down. I think again, all the successful teams that I've been a part of, you learn the most about your team when you're on either side of it, right? When you're either really, really high and things are going well, or when you experience some adversity, and whether that's loss of a close game or whether that's injury or whatever that may be. So it really, really helped us define who we were. It really helped me and the coaching staff kind of find out who we were. In today's transfer portal world, you really know? I think obviously when you're at the highest level and you maybe have 4 to 5 transfer guys come in, you kind of know your team and your culture. But we had 40 new guys come in, so we put a lot of time into developing the culture and kind of setting it the right way. But you really don't know till it's tested. And last week's response from the week before really let us know that we have the right people here. Obviously, we learn a lot from it from an X and O standpoint. How can coaches be better and all those things? But it really showed me and the coaching staff who we have in our locker room, and we can build on that.
And sort of piggybacking off of that answer, I wanted to follow up and ask you, leading into last week's game, what did you seen from your team on the practice field, in meeting rooms, just in the way that they carried themselves that gave you an idea, yeah, these guys are made of the right stuff. They're going to respond when we kick that ball off Thursday night under the lights.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about this summer, we put a lot of emphasis on extreme ownership. There's a military book that's out, written by some military leaders on extreme ownership and leadership and how you lead a team and what are your core values and what do they mean. And we went through that book as a team this summer. And I saw all of those, kind of bullet points. I saw extreme ownership from every leader on the team, including the coaches. I saw extreme ownership from the players. There wasn't finger pointing or if we'd have did this, we would have won. It was, we didn't win the game, but I could have done this better. I saw the approach to come back to practice with the same intensity and focus. I saw a lot of guys who physically, we had been through a good run there, who physically were doing their best to try and practice because I have to play this week. I have to play this week. And then I saw a team respond because we had a short week. We ended up playing, Saturday night game, down in Statesboro. We got back at 5 a.m. and we had a Thursday night game. So things sped up. So I really started to see the leadership, the buy-in to our standards and values. When they start repeating the things that you say to each other, they're really buying in. And I knew the first day we came out to practice, typically in a bye week, we cut back with pads and, we kind of go shells or we kind of go just helmets to kind of get the body back, but get the physical reps. And the leadership committee told me on the second day, we need to go full pads. And I said, okay. And I felt probably on that Tuesday, that Monday, Tuesday, that if the adults don't screw it up, we're going to be okay. And that's not that we were going to go out and score every drive, but I knew that we weren't going to let the second game or the game beat us twice. That does not mean we couldn't lose. We still had to go out and play well, but it wasn't going to be the hangover of here we go again. And we got into a situation in the game, and all the signs pointed to here we go again. And all the work we did in the summer with culture and talking about responding and how do you battle through showed up. So it was really good. It was really good to see that. It's really good as a coach when you put those things in place, and then the kids can kind of see the benefits of them. That's really the, kind of the great part of coaching, when you really see a young man grow, not just from a football X and O standpoint, but a team grow through maturity, a team grow through leadership, a team grow through adversity.
He is Marshall head coach Charles Huff. I am John Brice of FootballScoop.com here on the Our Coaching Network podcast. You're what I kind of consider an old school, new school coach. So when that player committee came to you and said, "Hey, coach, we need to go out on the practice field and get it on. Let's get physical. Let's light it up." How much was that just music to your ears, and how much did that maybe give you a sense of, yeah, the message absolutely is sinking in, as you just alluded to?
Yeah, well, I think, every, head coach has something that their culture is built on. And for us, it's toughness and discipline. And when the players don't rebel against the core values of the standards, you have the right players. Let me say that, because every player is not going to buy into every culture. But it was really refreshing for me, because I know that's the way you fix X and O problems. You have to go out and work. You have to go out and practice. If you could play this game without practicing, trust me, the NFL, the player union would have put in a rule a long time ago that we don't practice, we just show up on Sundays. But you have to practice. I still believe you have to be developed. There's no college football player at any level that doesn't need development. And you cannot play this game of football without practice. It's a physical game. So it was reassuring that, even though times have changed, philosophies have changed, the old school methods of you need reps and you need the physical activity to improve in football still matters. And it helps when you win, because they kind of see the benefits from it. It's kind of hard when you go out and you grind them, and you don't win. But I think, again, our players have bought into what they believe works, which is our process. Our process has allowed them to have confidence in it. And now we're starting to see the benefits of the consistency in it.
You touched on having 40 new players, which is just remarkable. You hear that usually when there's a new program, a regime change, like at an Indiana, or like what Deion Sanders did last year at Colorado. But you're in year four and you bring in 40 new players, and you guys just notched your fourth win on the field. How do you go about being in the portal and not just saying, "Okay, I like how this guy looks on film," and it's such a condensed period, but how do you go about identifying that, yeah, we're going to bring in 40 players, and I bet 35 of them end up being a great fit for you?
Yeah, we've lived in this portal world now for going on 2 or 3 years, and I'll say I've learned, I've failed, I've evolved. You really have to understand. I think there's two different lanes. You have your lane where NIL is the driver, and you're going to pay a young man what you can pay him, and it's going to work out or it's not. It is what it is. I think obviously it's very similar to high school recruiting, right? There's 5 stars and then there's 3 stars. The 5-star, quote unquote, portal guys, whether they can play at that level or not, are going to be in it for, how much NIL can I get? How much, value can I create for myself by this move? We don't live in that lane. We live in yes, we have to be active in NIL. We're not as active as Texas or Georgia. But it's more about the fit here at Marshall. And I think probably years before, I don't know if we actually hit on the right fits. This year, out of the 40 kids we have, I can say we hit on 40 of the right fits. Now, that doesn't mean we have 40 superstars, but we have 40 kids excuse me, who were new that came in and bought into everything we were asking them to do because they were the right fit. Meaning they may have transferred down from a Power Five school. No, the NIL wasn't what they could have went somewhere else and got, but they were looking for the right culture. They were looking for the right people. They were looking for the right situation. Some of the guys, made the move from the same level. Again, looking for the right culture, looking for the right people, looking for the right situation. And I think that has to be your kind of portal evaluator. You have to evaluate the film. You have to evaluate, can they play the game? But a big piece that I think is often missed is the actual personal relationship development piece in the portal. And you
You
got to go deep. You got to go deep. You don't have 2 years of high school and you don't get 3 or 4, visits, spring visits, official visit, junior day. You don't get that. So we have very direct conversations on the phone with young men. The first thing I ask is if NIL is important to you, then we're done talking. No disrespect to you. I want you to go and I want you to chase your dreams at the highest level. But here, that's not the lead in what we're offering you. We're offering you an opportunity. And obviously, we've been able to get some guys who would rather have the opportunity than $4 or $5 more. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's a sustainable, I can't go compete with Ohio State. I'm not saying that. But at our level and our location, that's been a good fit. And then you have to do the skill evaluation. I go back and watch their high school film. I go back and watch, if they've played a year or 2 or 3 in college. Because to me, it's more than just, can the kid play? You have to ask yourself, is this young man, playing out of position at another school? Is he being motivated to improve? If you're not motivated to improve, it doesn't matter how fast you are or what, you're not going to play. So those are the things we use.
I've got to ask. I knew what I wanted to ask next, but then you said you open conversations with dudes in the portal with if NIL is your number one priority, we don't need to keep talking. How many times have you had a conversation end after that opening intro?
A lot, a lot. But it's honestly, the kids respect it because I don't come off as brass or I just say, hey, look, man, here's the deal here. We got a great opportunity. We don't have a lot of NIL. If that's what, there's something that's really important to you and your family, for whatever the situation, I don't want to waste your time. I want you to go chase what you're able to get because I think you're a good player and I think you can find what you're looking for. Sometimes young men have situations that they have to be looking for that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes they think they're going to find that, but then they come back and say, you know what, coach, you were straightforward and honest with me, and that's what I'm really looking for. Okay, now we can have a conversation. But I don't want to waste kids' time. I don't want them to, I don't want to spend 4 hours on the phone with you, your mom, your dad, your coach, your trainer, and then it come down to the final, 2 minutes, and it's okay. Well, coach, what's the price? Well, I've wasted your time. You've wasted our time, and it's worked. Now, usually you get a lot of turnover because of that, because a lot of the guys that you're able to attract have 1 year left, have, maybe one season, maybe two. So you're kind of having to do that every year. It's not as sustainable as just saying, okay, hey, I know you got 3 years left. Here's the price. But I think that's what works for us.
He is Marshall head coach Charles Huff. I am John Brice of FootballScoop.com. This is the Our Coaching Network podcast. You once again are making my job really easy because you're leading right into what I already knew I wanted to talk to you about, and that is your authenticity. And you just gave us a peek into that approach by how you talk to guys in the portal. But I'm going to cheat a little bit here from personal experience of being around you from that Friday night at Blue Chips Casino, your team hotel in Michigan City, in before you upset Notre Dame to when I visited with you and embedded with your staff last spring. You have an open door policy, and dudes were in and out of your office all day long. It was really neat to see. And then we walked to lunch in downtown Huntington, and you were just a complete everyman. How much is that authenticity very much a part of the fabric of who you are, and how important is it for you to maintain that authenticity?
Yeah, I think you got to be yourself. I think oftentimes, for whatever reason, coaches get to this chair and they become somebody they're not, or they get put in the chair and they don't realize that 90% of what you do is building relationships and the personal part of it, whether you're engaging with donors, engaging with fans, engaging with players. um, Today's players different. They don't care if you got some great scheme or you ran some great offense or defense somewhere. They don't care. They want you to be real. And when you're not, these kids are probably the most um they probably identify fake easier than anyone because they live in the world of AI. They live in the world of catfish. They live in the world of, someone, puts up a picture, but the picture's got filters and oh, this ain't real. They live in that world. So they see through fake. And they see through it fast and they don't want to be around it. And that's what happens a lot of times is kids get in a situation where a coach is not real or doesn't seem authentic. I think it carries a lot more weight when the head coach is authentic. It's not like going to the principal's office. It's not like going to see the CEO or I mean, it's I'm going to see Coach Huff, and I know he's going to tell me the truth. Now I know I may not like it. I know, hey, if I go in there the wrong way, he's going to jump down my neck. But I also know that whatever he says or does is going to be from an authentic place. And I think kids respect that. I think they play harder for you. Um, on the sideline, Thursday night, I'm run up and down the sideline saying, we got to respond, we got to respond. And every kid's like, Coach, we got you. Relax, we got you. I'm like, well, you guys relax because the scoreboard doesn't say you got me right now. But they're like, Coach, we got you. Coach, we got you. Like, and I think that kind of goes unidentified a lot of times because it's, how many wins do you have, or at the press conference, what is everyone going to say, or after the game, what is everyone going to say, and all that matters. Don't get me wrong, but those 105 guys in the locker room, they matter more. Fans are awesome. I think we got some of the greatest fans in America here. They're passionate, but they don't want to win more than the players. The players want to win more than everybody, that's watching the game or comes to the game. So their kind of approach or their feel for how things are going, if things are authentic, if things are real, should carry a lot of weight. And I put a lot of emphasis on that. And then again, when you're talking to people outside the building, I don't want to talk to somebody that I don't think is real. Maybe I don't like how they come off or I don't like what they say, but at least I want to walk away saying, well, he was genuine. Maybe he didn't give me a Coke. I wanted a Diet Coke, but he was genuine. So I think that's the best way to be. And in that way, you don't have to put on a show for, um, you know, players, you're one way, donors, you're one way, fans, you're one way, media, you're one way. In today's world, every time that I talk, I'm talking to five groups of people. So they all hear it. I'm talking to the players. I'm talking to the administration. I'm talking to the media. I'm talking to donors. And I'm talking to anybody else that's looking at our program as far as recruits. So if I get in front of, on this podcast and I say one thing, and then I do my press conference on Tuesday and I say another thing, and then I get in front of the team in the team meeting and I say another thing, they see it all. So we don't live in the world of, well, it just got recorded in, the newspaper, or maybe it didn't hit this press conference or this podcast that I'm doing now. Every recruit's going to see, every, donor is going to see, my players are going to see it, my administrations are going to see it, our fans are going to see it. So anything that I say has to be authentic.
Full disclosure, when Pat Curran asked me who I wanted for a guest this week, you were among my very first text messages back to him, and I sent him your phone number. And as a self-described football nerd, it's moments like that because I like being around you because I learned football, but more importantly, I learned leadership, and that's what strikes me. And all fans want more wins. I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, a massive one. I want more Braves wins, and the Braves are sitting at home in the playoffs. So I understand, you hear it when fans want more wins at Marshall, but you're also responsible for some of the most significant modern era wins in Marshall football history. Obviously, that win at number 8 Notre Dame 2 years ago. You also have beaten Virginia Tech. You've gone to a bowl 3 consecutive years. If you guys keep winning, you'll be back in the postseason picture again in year 4. But I've mentioned all that to take you back. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to tell a story about when you first got hired. A few months later, you're getting ready for summer workouts, and there's a tent and a stage on your field because graduation ceremonies have taken place and it's Memorial Day weekend, and your guys are getting ready to have a tone setting conditioning session, and you went out there and helped tear the tent down yourself. So for those of us who don't know the story, and I got to hear it from your strength coach as well as ask you about it, tell us in your words, please, about tearing down the tent and setting a foundation for Marshall football in the process.
Yeah, we're lucky enough here to have a stadium that services this community. So it was the end of May, and here in West Virginia, there's a lot of high school graduations that go on at the end of May. And one of the high school graduations occurred on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. And obviously the tent and things were still up on Sundays because most tent companies don't work on Sundays of Memorial Day. Obviously I get it. But we had our first team workout, that Monday morning at 6 a.m. And, to me, that initial day one, how we, set the tone, ultimately put us where we are now, to be here in 4 years, to be in a really good spot in the conference, to be playing really good football. So I wanted to make sure that we got, first day of school matters, where you sit in the first day of school, how the teacher approaches you. So I didn't want to have a situation where, okay, well, we got to go in the indoor, whatever it may be. So I asked the administration, and they said, well, the tent company obviously is closed for Memorial Day. We can't, make them come take it down. So I called my strength coach and I said, well, do you got a hammer? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, well, we're going to go take the tent down. So we took the tent down, we rolled it up and kind of put it off to the side. When the tent company came the next day, they were like, thank you. It's like, well, no problem. But to me, there's no job too big, no job too small. And you got to learn how to do more with less. We have the ability and the luxury to allow our community to use our facilities. They're not on the same schedule that we're on. Sometimes you got to do things yourself in order to be able to set the foundation. And to me, it was a great opportunity. Me and my strength coach and a couple other administrators came. I learned how to take a tent down, which I've never done. It wasn't like a TP, go camping tent. This was a massive like stage and tent, the whole nine. So we learned how to take it down, but it just showed one, a lot of the new guys on my staff that I had not worked with, a lot of the new administrators that were here. Hey, this guy will roll up his sleeves and do the dirty work. It's not about pointing fingers and saying, hey, you go find somebody to take the tent down. And if you got a hammer and a couple screwdrivers, we got the tent down and we were able to have our workout. So it was honestly one of those moments for me. It was like, okay, well, we got to take the tent down. So, okay, what's next? We got to call third down. We got to find a way to move the practice, up an hour or whatever for study hall, whatever. I think it showed a lot of people that my willingness to adapt and find a way. And that's kind of been the tone of our, tenure.
I love that story. So I had to make you share it with this audience because I love that story so much. I think it's just one of many examples of why Marshall University is lucky to have you representing it and have you as their head coach. And I do know that also during the process of tearing that tent down, you had to stand on like a 55-gallon drum and help take down parts of the tent. So I guess that's a nod back to your playing days when you were an offensive lineman and a fullback, that you still had good balance there up on the old drum tearing down the tent.
Got to be ready to do the dirty work. You never know what it may call for. Sometimes playing O-line is not glorious and pretty.
The last thing here, we've kept you a little over 20 minutes. I'm super excited for this podcast. Again, he's Charles Huff, Marshall University head coach. I'm John Brice of FootballScoop.com. You've worked for some absolute titans in the game, from James Franklin to Dan Mullen, I believe, also Nick Saban, some other fabulous stops. What are some of the things that you bring with you every day from those stops, particularly maybe something you bring from Coach Franklin and something that you bring from Coach Saban?
Yeah, Coach Franklin is kind of the one head coach that got me started, kind of believed in me before I was the little nobody that he gave a chance, and I'm always forever indebted. The one thing I'll learn for him is organization and detail. He's for sure the most organized coach person that I've been around. He's the most detailed person. Um, he can tell you exactly what he's going to be doing on 3 days from now, 2 years from now. I mean, he's that detailed and that organized. I GA'd for him, and you would take him, a play sheet, or you would take him something that he had you do, and literally before you walked out of the room, he had like 50 red marks on it of things that you should have done, moved a line here. And I just learned that from him, that you can never be too detailed or too organized, and especially when you're dealing with an organization at the capacity that we have. You're talking almost 200 people that you're responsible for. You got to be organized. There's no way an organization can run efficiently if they don't know what and when and how and all those things. So he probably taught me the most, the organization and the detail and everything you do, whether that's obviously on the field, X's and O's, whether that's where people sit in the staff meeting, whether that's where people sit on the bus, like all of it matters. Because what it does is it gives everyone a chance to understand the flow and to relieve anxiety. Like there's no, okay, what next, or where should I be? And the thing that I would say I learned from Coach Saban was just the consistency and discipline. You got to have a routine. You can't adjust your routine just because you won or you lost. You got to be consistent in your process. And then the discipline to stick with it. For example, you may want to say, okay, well, we're going to practice less because it's a short week. Well, you can't do that because you're going to get less in return from the process. You modify things, don't get me wrong, but the consistency in process, the consistency in your routine, the consistency in yourself. Every day coach came to work the exact same way. It wasn't like, oh, we just beat LSU, so he came in kind of laughing, joking, easy, or oh, we lost to Auburn, so he came in upset. He came in really upset every day. It's kind of what it was like. But it was very consistent. And what that did was it allowed you as an assistant coach to know exactly what you were going to get from him. There was no, hey, who is he going to be today? How is he going to respond today? There was no, well, what time is practice, or what are we going to do at practice today? It was very consistent. Um, and then you were able to kind of plan. You were able to kind of know what you needed to do. Hey, I got to have my guys ready for this period of practice today. So I got to get this film cut up ready for my meeting. I know the meetings at this time. I know the staff meetings at this time. So I can plan what I need to do. I know on Friday nights, here's the routine. Here's the schedule. I know, in the game, here are the things that are going to, be called upon from me. So I'm ready for those. And it really helped kind of, again, alleviate anxiety. So those would be the things, Coach Franklin from an organization and a detail, and then Coach Saban from a consistency and discipline standpoint. And both of those guys, it flows to the players. They feel a lot more at ease when they know exactly what the schedule is. They have lives too. I know, sometimes we don't really think about it, but I've got young men with kids. I've got young men who, have other things going on in their life. If I just call practice right now and text everybody that says, hey, we're practicing in 10 minutes, get here. Well, that's not conducive. That's not conducive to them. Same thing with other staff members, right? Everyone has families, everyone has jobs, roles to do as well. So those would be the two things I'd say.
We've got to let you go. It's been too long. I wanted to talk a little bit more maybe next time. You've made a couple of really impressive coordinator hires. Jason Seymour last year on defense, Seth Dagey this year on offense, and now you guys have 4 wins on the season, 2-1 in Sun Belt Conference play. Still in contention for that Sun Belt Conference title, and a lot of big things down the road potentially for your Marshall football program. Charles Huff, thanks for joining us here on the Our Coaching Network podcast.